Hi, everyone. Welcome to the February session of our Digital Media Strategies series with Youth Marketing Connection. We're so pleased to have Hannah and Molly back with us. My name is Heather Zessiger, and I'm with the CoVAC initiative at ACHA, and we are thrilled to see all of you here. So I will let Hannah go ahead and kick it off.
Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Let me share my screen. Just a second. All right, you guys can all see that? Thumbs up. I can't see you guys, so I guess it doesn't matter. Feel free to use the chat. Feel free to use the raise hand feature throughout this presentation, just as we did last time. So welcome. Just a quick reminder of who we are. My name is Hannah Hickman. I'm the Digital Marketing Director at YMC. YMC is a millennial and Gen Z focused full service marketing agency. We build engaging, authentic, and relevant campaigns for associations, organizations, companies, and so on. And then my co-presenter today will introduce herself. Oh, Molly, you're on mute.
Hey, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hey, everyone. My name is Molly. I'm Senior Program Manager at Youth Marketing Connection, and we're really excited to be back.
Okay, perfect. So our topic today is getting online, establishing a social media presence. So the aim for this one is either creating accounts or reactivating small accounts, or really just getting a fresh start on social media for your organization. But first, we're gonna do some more interaction. We're gonna take a quick poll. I believe we have Zoom polling set up. If not, let's drop the questions in the chat and feel free to raise your hand. Just drop your responses. So the first question, is your organization on social media? So yes, no, we used to be, maybe don't have a presence anymore, or you don't. Let's see, a hand raised. Open that. All right, let's do Arna.
Oh, I was raising my hand just to say that, yes, my organization is on social media.
Okay, perfect. I'm very happy to hear that. It looks like a lot of us are. So let's go. We have Marianne. Looks like you raised your hand. Not a big deal. All right, so I'm seeing a lot of people are on social media. There's a few who aren't. So it's great to see that we have a lot of people already here. Okay, so our next question. How comfortable are you with working on social media as a professional? Are you an expert? You feel comfortable? You need some help? Or you're not really quite sure where to start? Social what? All right, seeing a nice range of B's and C's. So definitely dependent on experience, channel, how you're using it. So we'll discuss a little bit more about this as we go forward, how to get more comfortable, how to make this a little bit easier for everybody. And then finally, our last question. What is your most used personal social media platform? So what do you use outside of work? Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, something else that might not be listed, or you don't have social media? Seeing a lot of A's for Facebook, a lot of Instagram as well. I think those are our top ones. If you are using something else, I'd also love to hear about that. I'm seeing a little Snapchat, LinkedIn. All right, it looks like a lot of you guys are using a lot of social media. That's great. Nice mix. Definitely seeing a lot of preference for A and D for Facebook and Instagram. So we just wanted to use this to kind of get a pulse on what everyone's using, what everyone's comfortable with, and how we can best use these presentations going forward. So another quick little discussion. This isn't a poll, but if you want to add your comments in the chat or you can raise your hand. What are some aspects of social media that you are finding challenging? You can share in the chat. Like I said, use your hand. You can use this personally or within your organization. What are aspects that you don't get, you have struggle with trying to get time to do it, and so forth? Okay, seeing some really great answers. A lot about time, not knowing what to share, different platforms, engagement. Ooh, there you guys have a lot of good answers. I'm very happy to see that, like a lot of the similar things. All right, so we are going to discuss a lot of these things as well. So we're going to dive in just a second as you guys keep writing. Time, finding content, we're going to be talking about that. Editing, audiences, analytics, we also will touch on as well. Okay, burnout. Burnout is very real on social media, so we will also touch on that a little bit. So let us dive a little bit more into a broad overview of social media. So Molly?
Yeah, awesome. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so we just discussed a broad range of different social media platforms. So we'll call out a couple of them and sort of what are their strengths and downfalls. First and foremost, Facebook. I think we're all very familiar with Facebook. It's definitely the biggest in terms of size and what it has to offer as a singular platform. It's got a lot of different nooks and crannies. So within Facebook, we have the ability, normal posting on a news feed. We also can share stories and posts. There's job application sites. There's buy and sell groups, interest groups, pages. Facebook chat is also a big element of the platform. Their messaging system is really widely used, especially in international communications. So lots of different things going on Facebook, which has definitely contributed to the platform evolution. I think it looks absolutely nothing like it did when we all probably first joined Facebook, and we're continuing to see the platform evolve and how different age groups and demographics use and engage with Facebook. Twitter is another great platform. It's a major player. It's largely stayed the same since its inception, very much unlike Facebook. It's got that limited character feed that has been tweaked a little bit, but still pretty much is a main feature of the platform. And the ability to retweet and reshare content and categorize posts via hashtags is also a very prevalent way that people use Twitter. Threads is a newer concept, but threads are kind of more like story times, wherein you're building upon a series of tweets that are all connected to one another, maybe a story, maybe a rant, something like that. Instagram is still really popular. It continues to be the most popular program among young people. It's constantly adding new features, and you can share not only images, but video posts, lives, reels, hashtags, etc. And then we have TikTok. TikTok is the big topic of discussion these days. TikTok's made itself, or ingrained itself, I should say, in society because of the engagement that you inherently get when you introduce things like challenges, stitches, duets, etc. It's a really interactive platform in a way that I think any other social media experience has yet to even come close to. And that's really what's driving the intensely growing, intensely rapid growth and success of TikTok. And then YouTube, this is another one that's been around for a long time, and I know we're all intimately familiar with. The use of YouTube hasn't changed a lot. The kind of evolution of YouTube is more around the culture. So now you have YouTube stars and celebrities as opposed to just like a viral clip that you might have had at one point during the platform's inception. So we want to talk really quickly about who's using social media, but it's a complicated question because basically literally everyone. Most specifically for Facebook, there are 2.7 billion users and around 26% of them are millennials. There's around 1 billion users on Instagram and around 33.1 of them are millennials. For Twitter, there's 187 million daily users, and 44% of this group is actually Gen X. For TikTok, there's 100 million monthly users, and this is by far and away the Gen Z demographic. And for YouTube, there's around 2 billion monthly users, mainly Gen Z, but all age groups really apply to the YouTube stardom right now. Okay, so a couple of fun facts about our favorite social media platforms. Facebook was a country, it would be the 7th most populous on the planet, which is insane to think about. And for Instagram, 70% of the users on the platform use it to follow brands and organizations. So it's not just necessarily a peer-to-peer limited platform. It's a great way to engage with a customer base or a consumer base. For Twitter, 10% of the users create 80% of the platform's content. So we're seeing a limited number of users generate what you'll see most of the time on the content. And a lot of that, again, is coming into play that Twitter has a lot of recycled and retweeted images and tweets. For YouTube, there are 500 hours of YouTube uploaded every minute, of YouTube videos, uploaded every minute, which is insane. And 69% of US teens are on the TikTok platform. So a couple of fun stats there.
Thank you, Molly. So let's talk a little bit about getting started on social media. I know a lot of you guys have indicated that you are using social media very frequently in your work, in your personal life. However, let's take a little bit of a step back. Sometimes you might need to relaunch, you might want to update your strategy, update your goals. So let's think a little bit about that. So when you are on social media, you do want to set a goal. These goals should dictate where you go. Figure out what you want to accomplish by being on social media and get on the platforms that best align with what you want to accomplish. If you really want to reach young people, Twitter might not be the best method for you because it is largely used by some older people, and you can see that there's a bigger presence of Gen Z elsewhere. Just because it exists does not mean you need to be on it. Make sure you're getting in contact with the right people. I know many of you are university affiliated, so you likely have to talk to the communications department, follow some policy and guidelines, just make sure everyone is aligned and ensure that you guys are going in the right direction. Also get some support in terms of style and policy and also content. As the old saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work. There are a lot of opportunities for inter and intra-department cooperation. The people who aren't tasked with social media for their job do likely have a lot of great insight, have a lot of good ideas, and can help contribute. And connect with the departments and the people that do run successful and somewhat related social media pages. They will be able to offer you some insight, some tips, as well as provide a little bit of content. We talked about connecting with your audience, especially as something that was a pain point for some of us. Connecting repeatedly is very important with your audience, students, young people, as to what platforms they're on, what content they like, and what they would like to see. Being able to have this dialogue with the young people who will be consuming it is very important. If you have student employees, if you have the opportunity to send out a survey or a blog or something like that, you will be able to get a little bit more insight as to what content to curate, how often, where you should be, and so forth. And as we said before, narrow it down a little bit, step back and evaluate what works best. After you have some time on social media, figure out, is this serving our goal? Is this making more work than it's worth? Does this work with our staff resources? And it's okay to not be on a platform, even if you already have a presence. If you're on Facebook and you have no engagement, you're not really getting anything except spam, it's more than fine to turn off that page and dedicate those additional resources to Instagram, where say you are getting a lot of engagement. And your limited staff resources should not be further strained by trying to post on every platform. It's more important to do one platform really, really well than do 7 platforms when you have the time. So let's talk a little bit about content. So part of running a successful social media account is posting and creating content. If you create a page and never use it, there's not really a point. It's just kind of a billboard for you with no information. So think of social media as a bulletin board that's for the public. You can use it for anything from important information, fun things, related articles, videos, memes, as long as it's related. And every platform is different, meaning that one size does not fit all. So ensure that you're not using the same content across every single platform if it doesn't make sense. So for Facebook, it's pretty flexible in terms of videos, images, links, or just plain text. That's well suited for the platform. You can kind of put anything out there and someone will see it. For Twitter, images, text, and links are really good. Video does okay on the platform, but you're better off doing still images and links. You also have to be very wary of the text limit. So if you are doing like a large announcement, you could probably write that all on a Facebook post. You won't be able to write that on Twitter. For Instagram, you need to focus on images and videos. You can share links via the link in the bio, and there are sites that allow you to create multiple links in a bio, such as Linktree or link in bio. For TikTok, we're only doing videos there. You can do somewhat of a slideshow turned into a video, but that does not get good engagement. So you really want to do videos only. Same with YouTube. So everything has different needs, different time commitments, different things that are going to perform better. You can take the same piece of content and repurpose it for each platform. However, try to differentiate it a little bit, change the copy, add an image, take an image away, or turn the group of images into a slideshow. Instagram does allow you to post up to 10 images in one post, so you can have a lot of variation there. For the frequency per platform, that also varies very much. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. We'll have a chart that you guys can reference easily. You will be getting all the resources that we are talking about here, as well as a group of handouts at the end. So every platform has their own set rules for how often you should post. And a lot of times the algorithm of that platform will either help you a lot if you post within that parameters, or it will put you lower in the feed, so people won't see it as much. For example, Facebook, you don't want to post more than 2 to 3 times a week. Any more than this, the algorithm will tend to quote unquote punish you and not show your feed, your post in the feed, and less likely to be seen by your audience. For Twitter, there's really no such thing as over tweeting. Be careful not to spam. You don't want to see something every minute, but don't be afraid to post multiple times in a day, multiple times in a row, retweet. It's very hard to make your audience annoyed on that platform. For Instagram, 3 to 4 times a week, it's a little bit more than Facebook. You can only post so many times before you're pushed down the feed. However, there are other things that you can post, such as a story, and you can post that as often as you want. And for stories, those are things that you can, things that might be more fun, less serious, things you don't want living on the page forever. It's a good way to interact and get more of that content out without being punished in the algorithm. TikTok is also very similar to Twitter in terms of overposting. It is very, very hard to overpost on it because there is no such thing as a chronological feed. Granted, it's a lot harder to generate video content, but given TikTok's algorithm, you can post as much as you have. And similar to TikTok and Twitter, YouTube, there is no limit. Again, harder to generate video content, but there are options out there. And for your social media, you don't just need to post your own content, your own blog posts, images, and so forth. You can reshare items from others. A lot of platforms make it very easy to do, such as Twitter's retweet feature. TikTok is introducing a reshare feature as well. Facebook, again, has the same thing. Just ensure that you're giving the proper credit and don't claim things as your own if they're not. There are millions of profiles posting millions and millions of posts every single day. Just ensure that your content is from a trusted source. A lot of platforms will provide a verification check mark, usually by the profile name, by the post. Just make sure if you are resharing, make sure it's from a legitimate page, not a copycat, and it's from a real source. I do see a question on the chat. What departments on campus have the most followers? Asking them to partner with you when you launch or relaunch a channel. That is a great idea. Oh, I see that from ACHA. Thank you, Heather. The best thing about working with a organization that has a lot of different social media posts, or social media pages rather, is that you can boost each other and you can rely on each other. So we have this handy little chart for you. We will be sending out this at the end, just to differentiate the types of content on each platform and the frequency, everything that I've talked about before. So for Instagram, I just wanted to call out, there are a few different types of posts. You have just the still images and reels, which is video, which kind of is a TikTok copycat almost. Again, this for images and reels, you want to stick within 3 to 4 times per week, and there's no limit on the stories. So Molly.
Okay, cool. So we have another little cheat sheet here if you're ever looking for inspiration for content. So first and foremost, people like other people. That's what we're interested in learning about and seeing. So the more opportunities that you have to promote people on your social media, the more engagement you'll tend to get back. So people-centered content could include things like a day in the life of an employee, an interview or a Q&A session. A behind the scenes element is always exciting. So anytime that you can focus in on a specific person and put a face to the organization is a really great way, again, to drive engagement from your followers. Hashtags is a pretty obvious one. Recurring weekly hashtags, consistency is key when it comes to using hashtags. And then also having hashtags that are timely and correspond with the month or even day of the week. Throwback Thursday, Saturday Special, Sunday Funday, etc. These are really a great way to find content and help your followers or your intended target audience to find your content as well. Another great element with hashtags is hashtag hopping. When you create content based on a trending hashtag, we will get into this a little bit more later on in the presentation, but there are certain pitfalls with hashtag hopping that we need to be careful about. Moving into challenges, challenges is a ton of fun. I think that this is most successfully executed again on the TikTok platform, and people like the opportunity to test themselves and to contribute to a challenge. The Met Gala challenge comes to mind. Usually, just like with a hashtag, people will post millions of pieces of content that will kind of fall into the same bucket. And that way an issue on social media can be kind of contributed to by everyone involved, and really gives people the opportunity to kind of play into that. Holidays is another great opportunity to create content. Reels are really fun, like opening presents for the winter holidays, an Easter egg hunt, dressing up on Halloween, that kind of thing, giveaways for a holiday that are themed. And then even holidays that aren't necessarily the main ones that we think of, but smaller holidays like National Taco Day or Adopt a Puppy Day, that kind of thing, can be really cute and offer some great opportunities for content as well. Resharing is another great strategy. Some platforms, like we've talked about, have this built in where you don't need to create your own content every day to stay active and relevant. You can lean on relevant sources to promote their content if it aligns with your own visions and your brand's goals. And then lastly, we have memes. Memes are not dead. Memes are fun, they're visual, they're a really easy way to communicate kind of an entire thought with just like a quick visual screen grab. They're really engaging, they're funny, and they're kind of bite-sized. So memes are another great way to kind of play into the content you're trying to create, and it can really keep things also lighthearted and relevant while also presenting relevant content. And it also takes off a little bit of pressure if you're always looking to try to be super buttoned up and professional. Memes can be very much professional, but just kind of more of a lighthearted feel. Okay, cool. Another big element in terms of content creation is creating your brand voice. So brand voice is another word for digital personality. You can use those pretty much interchangeably. We used Wendy's as an example because it has a really clear brand voice and digital personality on their social. Their social media team is very snarky and sarcastic, and you'll see their comments like scattered throughout other people's pages. And it draws people in, and it really works for the personality that they've built for their brand. So kind of developing a signature personality is a really great way, again, to drive engagement. A visual identity is another big element of creating content on socials. If you post a standalone image, people can tell that it comes from, should be able to tell that it's coming from your organization. So developing a visual identity can include being really consistent in fonts, image styles, colors, templates, structures, and that kind of thing. If you have a question. Okay. Is there a recommended minimum number of times you should post each week? This, I think that we talked about a little bit earlier in the presentation, and as a reminder, we will get these handouts so that everybody has these at their own defense. Okay, sorry about that. Moving into style guide. You really want your content to be dynamic and living. So your style guide should always be a living document. Figure out what works, what doesn't work so well, and adjust your style guide as such to ensure that everyone is on the same page within your organization, while still making sure that the content you're posting is relevant and effective. In terms of your content, you want to consider what's going on in the world. Content can be really easy part of your brand in terms of what you post. So if we're a health organization, posting an article on the latest NFT might cause confusion. So you don't want to depart too much from your brand and hurt your credibility on social media. And a good way to do that is to ensure that what you're posting is on topic and related to what you post, what you have posted historically. So there's a few things to consider with this. You can absolutely share content that's unrelated if there's a direct tie back to the content that you typically would post. So for example, posting about a football game can be appropriate if you have a tabling event at the game, or if you have some connection or presence to the team. Alternatively, puns and idioms can be a fun way to kind of help tie in content that you might want to share, but isn't necessarily directly related. You can also use content to establish credibility. So if you share high quality, relevant, and timely information, and use your captions to expand and provide your own take, there are a lot of opportunities to publish and put out statements and to establish yourselves as a leader, and to provide followers with information that they want or are seeking. So a way to establish yourself as a credible source is to see yourself as a resource for your audience and to help them do the same. So posting false and out of date or off topic information is clearly not what we want to do to establish consistent content and reliable content. So that's another thing we want to double and triple check, that what we're posting is relevant, necessary, accurate, and on point.
Okay, a lot of good discussion in the chat. Thank you guys for being so active with that. There was a quick comment on Wendy's and how they use snark and sarcasm. We were using that more of an example of a brand that has built out a nice niche for itself. It's not something that we would initially want to see from a lot of other people. Other people do try. It comes off as very mean or disingenuous, especially if you are communicating from a health aspect. I definitely don't want to use a lot of sarcasm and snark, but humor is definitely a good way to play around with your audience, make yourself a little bit more relatable, add a little bit more content as well. So
yeah, I think another good example for that is also Duolingo. If anyone's familiar with the Duolingo TikTok account, their social media team has become like notorious for just leaving very funny comments on other people's videos. It doesn't have that same kind of snarky bite to it, but it's got a little bit more of like a personal or more human accessible element to it, where she's kind of like vulnerable in a very funny way. So developing that voice, if that voice is funny or if it's sarcastic, or if it's, again, got that vulnerability aspect, is important. Clearly, like Hannah mentioned, we want to keep it professional and we want to keep it relevant to our own content, but developing the voice so that everyone on the team is united and your followers and audiences can recognize it is going to be really helpful in terms of recognition and engagement.
absolutely. So let's dive into an example of a really good brand. So this is Headspace. It's a meditation app. It's got very popular in the past few years, very similar to Calm and other things like that. They have made a very great brand for themselves that can be recognized without seeing their name or their logo. With this, they have a very consistent muted color palette, a cast of very recognizable characters. Yes, they are mostly blobs and such, but you could tell this is Headspace when you see them throughout their website and branding. They have a very consistent font and they share consistent types of content. Their content is related to meditation, being calm, self-care, and so forth. So this is a good example of a very consistent brand. On the offhand, there is time branding does go very wrong. So Tropicana, one of our favorite brands of orange juice, A few years ago, Tropicana rebranded. They introduced a new logo, new packaging, new branding. They changed that iconic orange with a straw in it to a glass of orange juice. While it did modernize the brand, kind of made it a little more up to date, people did not recognize it. They had no idea that it was still Tropicana. They walked past it. They looked for other things on the shelf that they didn't think was a generic. So as a result, Tropicana lost over $180 million in sales. And within a few months, reverted back to their old branding after spending millions of dollars on rebranding, repackaging, designers, and so forth. So ensuring that people can recognize who you are in a quick glance is very important for people to understand who you are. And it also gives your content the time and attention that it deserves. So we're not saying you need to completely rebrand all the time, but if you are, just make sure you're keeping things consistent in the same voice, in the same pattern or so forth, whatever that style guide is, either for the larger organization or within your department. So managing social media is a full-time job. There's a reason that the term social media manager exists. There are ways that you can plan and reduce the day-to-day requirements of managing social media, especially if it is only a tiny aspect of your job. So with that, take some time to plan your content, look at your calendar, figure out if you have any events, deadlines, holidays, things like that coming up, and be sure to mark it on the calendar or the social media content calendar if you have one to ensure that you can plan ahead for that. We also will be sharing some examples of content calendars as well, just so that is something that you guys can utilize that will work best for you. With a content calendar, there's a few different ways that it takes form. There are things like spreadsheets on Excel or in Google Sheets. There are in-platform schedulers such as Facebook, Tweetdeck, TikTok also has one as well. There's also third-party social media schedulers that will aggregate all of your platforms and make sure you can schedule something at the same time or the same time frame on multiple platforms all at once. Taking time at key points in the year to plan ahead is also going to make your social media management a lot more manageable. So take a look at what's going on over the next semester, the next quarter, and so forth. Write these down. You can plan anything specific, such as post or a campaign. And going forward, you're not going to be approaching an event unexpectedly and then freaking out because you've already made a plan for this. You can do this as often or as inoften as you want. Leah asked a really good question about schedulers. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I love Sprout Social. I like Hootsuite. Buffer is a good one. They have a really good free option. It's not my favorite, in my opinion, but it is very user-friendly and it is free. For the most part, you can pay for more if you have more profiles, but I believe it includes up to 3 free ones. But yes, that is a good third-party scheduler as well. Someone mentioned about commenting as well. Commenting, everyone has their own rules with that, so just be careful. Make sure you know the rules for that, and err on the safe side. If you're not sure if you comment, don't. It's better for you to have radio silence from a page than to cause an issue. Julie also added a really great piece of advice. 3 questions to ask before you post. Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? Does it need to be said by me right now? Those are really good things to keep in mind. You don't always have to have a post. You don't always have to be creating content. If you don't have anything to say, don't force it. But at the same time, try to keep your pages active. A minimum time, I would try to post at least once per week. If that's not feasible, once every other week, but I wouldn't go more than 2 weeks without a post. So other things that we could do to make managing your social media a little bit easier, setting goals. We did talk about the importance of that. What is your goal on social media? What do you want to accomplish? Do you want to reach more people? Do you want to get more eyes on your website? Do you want to be a thought leader? When you set these goals, it can help inform your strategy and also adjust how you approach each platform, whether it is through content, your presence on the platform, and so forth. There are a lot of tools out there that are going to make this a lot easier. Like we said, content calendars, following social media focused blogs are also going to provide a lot of easy to understand platform updates, rule changes, trends, and so forth. Some that I can recommend, Sprout Social has one, Adweek, AdAge. They all run really great accounts that are going to give you the latest on social media trends and so forth. You also want to look at analytics as well. So analytics are going to help you understand how your content's performing and how you can adjust your content going forward. Say you post a lot of memes and they do really well, but when you post an article, it people don't like it, they don't respond, they don't see it, you can make that article into a meme somehow, some way. And you can adjust your strategy going forward. A lot of the platforms do have analytics within it. Facebook has an insight tool on their pages, I believe in groups as well, LinkedIn, Twitter, all that is within the profile page that you can access and use. There are also third-party analytics, usually through the scheduler websites as well. Keyhole is one that we use a lot at YMC, which can pull in major profiles or even individuals' profiles as well. And Julie did mention social media today, another really good blog and content creator to follow in terms of getting up-to-date news on social media and trends. So just a quick comment on the content tools. There are a lot of options, like we said. We have Google Sheets and Excel templates. We included some of those in the handouts that you'll be getting later. There's in-platform ones for Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. So TweetDeck was formerly a third-party one. Twitter bought it. Now it's through Twitter as well. And through that, you're able to track certain hashtags, schedule out your content, and so forth. And there are third-party ones such as Hootsuite, Sprout Social, and Buffer. So you do have a lot of these options available to you to access, to use. And also, if you're using one and it doesn't work, feel free to adjust as well.
All right, so let's talk growth and maintenance on your socials. Clearly, growing is really important just so that you can ensure you've got eyes on your content as you move forward through your social posting. So a couple of ways to ensure positive growth are to make sure that your social is posted on your website. So always make it really accessible for a user to maybe scroll 1 or 2 clicks max before they have found their way to your social media pages. Another big element, which we've talked about a couple of times, is just remaining active and posting regularly. As Hannah mentioned, posting not enough is usually better than posting too much and then posting something you shouldn't have. But we really want to toe that line of making sure that we're staying relevant and staying on people's feeds. Interacting is another big element with growth. So social is the key word of social media. We want to interact with other pages and other other people by commenting, liking, and resharing. I know that there was a discussion earlier when we were talking about comments in the chat. This is something that we definitely encourage you all to revisit the style guide or guidelines within your department or your organization to make sure that the whole team is crystal clear on commenting guidelines. But if it's something that your team does allow, commenting can be a really great way to build that growth and kind of build a following. Paid advertising is another big driver of growth. I mean, for clear reasons, it can definitely increase a follower size and an audience. So we'll go over this a little bit more in a future session, but that's clearly another route to take if growing through these other methods isn't necessarily working for your page. So maintenance is a little bit different. Keeping your following isn't as easy as growing it in a lot of ways. Again, a really important element is just maintaining a regular posting schedule, staying on people's feeds, making sure that you're posting relevant and timely content, and make sure that you're providing value to your audience. So again, you want to post things that are helpful, consistent, and relevant, and in a timely manner. If there are things like questions on your posts, comments, be that positive or negative, responding to those and engaging with people who are engaging in your post is another really great way to keep your following and kind of build upon the audience that you've already built. And addressing issues. So social media can be a really great tool for connection. It can also be a really terrible place if it's unmoderated or under-moderated. So we need to keep an eye on comments and posting on our pages. So ensuring that we're moderating people who are posting or commenting inappropriate things on our pages, deleting spam and hate, terminating arguments if you see any of that happening or any of it starting to happen, and addressing misinformation. So this should be a process, something that your team should be aligned on before the post goes live, as opposed to just like one person trying to fix it on the fly and handing it off to another person. So again, we very much recommend revisiting your social media guidelines. And if there's not something already built out to address comment moderation and engagement moderation, we very much recommend revisiting that and getting your whole team aligned.
Yes, I'm going to take a quick step back really quick just to show you an example of some of the social media planning that we've talked about. So give me one moment to pull the right thing up. So this is a good example of YMC's own social media calendar. We use a Google Sheet that we keep up to date. When we post, we hide it over here using the right-hand side. We have the post date, a theme and a category, our caption, hashtags, our links, the image, as well as the approval status. This is a really good way for all of us to work together. And you can see in the bottom tabs that they're all differentiated by platform. Another good one is Buffer. This is a good way to schedule out. The way you can do it is set times that typically content performs the best. I believe it also does provide you a little bit of insight in terms of what these times are. All you have to do is click schedule a tweet or whatever thing that is, and you'll post. It gives you an option to drag and select an image. You can design with Canva if that is something that you use, select from Google Drive and so forth. And then you schedule the post and you don't have to think about it. And then finally, we have Tweetdeck. This is the Twitter platform that's in platform one. From here, you can write your tweet, schedule it out. You can add any of the media as well. And then through the dashboard there, you can look at your home feed, your explore feed, notifications, your profile. And if I want to have something specific to look at, I can just search this here and keep it as a column going forward. So just wanted to share that very quickly. Let me take us back to the presentation.
Thanks, Hannah.
No problem.
All right, so Good Firms recently conducted a study as to why people were unfollowing brands on social. A lot of this clearly is just personal preference and individual taste, which as a social media manager, there's not a lot you can do about, but there are a couple of ways that brands alienate their audiences. So if you're posting too much, if you're posting irrelevant content, if you're not engaging with your audience, if you're not moderating those comments, like we mentioned, you can not only just lose followers on your social media, but you can also damage trust and credibility to your brand. So we think that this is a really interesting kind of snapshot into what followers are looking for and not looking for. So again, no longer interested. There isn't a lot you can do. I think that that's something any brand can fall victim to. Irrelevant content to the brand, as we discussed, posting too much or too often, offensive, inappropriate posts is a big portion. It's almost 39%, which is, I think, an outstanding amount, which again goes back to our discussion of it's better to not post enough than to post something that we regret. Lack of engagement is another big element. Fake news or misinformation, too many promotions or advertisements. People get very fatigued of this type of content very quickly. So there are ways to do it tastefully where it's not so in your face that it's an advertisement or a promotion. But for the most part, this is a type of content that followers are very susceptible to. And then poor quality of products. This is just if your brand or organization doesn't have the strength that the followers are looking for and they want to disassociate. As healthcare organizations, that shouldn't come into play too much, but I still think it's relevant because it's, again, almost 11% of people who responded that they were unfollowing an organization or a brand on social media.
I want to touch a little bit on the offensive/inappropriate posts. We talked about hashtag hopping before. So a lot of times a brand or an organization will put forth a hashtag for a specific campaign to get feedback for a challenge and so forth. There are ways that you can engage with that to get a lot of great engagement from new followers and existing followers. There are also ways that you can do that where it's not going to work that well. A really famous example of this is there was a hashtag called #WhyIStayed, and it related to domestic violence, why mainly women stayed with someone who was abusing them. DiGiorno Pizza responded, "Why I stayed, hashtag, they had pizza." They deleted the tweet very quickly. They apologized. However, because they made that very senseless move very quickly. It's something that I'm talking about almost 10 years later in a training. It's something that you'll hear other trainers talk about. That very quick mistake, that thinking they're not doing the right vetting, has hurt their brand reputation to the point that it is a example across an industry. There are other examples of this, but that is probably the most famous. So just make sure that if you are going to go on a trending hashtag and tweet something or use something from another platform, make sure you understand what it's about. I saw a question before, I don't know where it went, about hiring students who are managing social media. A good way to ensure that this is something that stays consistent is making a brand or a style guide. I believe we have an example of that in the handouts. With that, it's basically a how-to guide of how to use your social media. With that, you can include how often you want to be posting, what pages you're posting on, the general voice you want to use. Say this person should be exuding a very friendly tone, a very informative, very authoritative, whatever is the best mood or tone for your brand and your organization. And also ensuring that there's rules. And if you say you're using specific abbreviations, make sure that that's written down somewhere just so that that's understood, and going forward, that's going to be consistent. So writing things down, documentation, make sure it's a living document. I highly suggest Google Docs for this just because it is very easy to update consistently. So I would absolutely be sure to be on that. Let's see. So John asked, you mentioned too many promotions. Can you speak of the ratio of posts for the brand versus for the audience? Yes, so there is no set ratio. If you are posting 5 times a week, you probably want to err more towards something that serves the audience rather than promoting your brand. Again, this is more of a healthcare related space, so that's kind of hard to be like, look at us, we're amazing all the time. You probably have a lot of good information to share. And with too many promotions, you don't want to pat yourself on the back too much. You're more than welcome to occasionally, but try to focus more on the audience. Definitely promote as you see fit, promote your services, promote whatever you think is appropriate, but find that nice balance, whatever works for you. You can also figure that out using analytics. If your promotion posts aren't doing very well, then try to mix it up a little bit. Okay. Julie also did something great. In my content calendar, I keep a tab of frequently used hashtags so you don't mix them up or use the wrong one. That is a great thing to do in a brand guide and a style guide in your content calendar. Just having an existing list of things that work. You can also use evergreen posts. Some organizations have like a separate tab where they have social media posts that they can tweet a few times a year, even like once a month. That way you don't have to think about it. It's something that's going to work no matter what and when. Just ensure that it's accurate and you're sharing it at the right times. Julie also commented, always vet the hashtags before using them, check multiple channels. A lot of times Twitter is the place to go when you're talking about other platforms. So ensure that you're understanding what's happening, where that conversation is coming from. Beth, you asked, can you share an example? Are you talking about presentations or the hashtag hopping, or if I can get a little more insight? Sorry, I've been talking through a lot of different things. I'll keep an eye on the messages for that and follow up. So we're going to open this up for everyone now. Let's take some time to talk about our own experiences with social media. What are you facing? Are you having issues getting on a platform, using a platform? And if you have any specific issues, feel free to drop that directly into the chat. We have time to workshop something. So, okay, for a style guide for student workers, I don't believe I have an example on hand. I could probably find one fairly quickly. Okay, yes, I can actually share YMC's one very quickly. 1 second. Share. So this is YMC's own style guide. With this, our first section is the grammar, style, word usage, and writing tips. So basically how we use our acronyms, capitalizations, colons. This is very well-rounded. You don't need to do something so intensive. Word usage, if there are specific words that you prefer over another. For example, I think a good one is on campus. For that, there should be a dash between it whenever you're doing that. Just little things like that. Every organization has their own little tips and tricks for that. There's some writing tips such as using as well as or and or. Further down, we have a visual identity, the logo, the ways that the logos can be shared, unacceptable uses of logos as well. We have our color palette and our fonts as well as icons we like using. So that's a good example. I'm not sure if I can share the specific style guide, but I will be sharing an example of one. So I'll absolutely make sure you have that. Let me get back to our presentation. So yes, you can have, building that brand kit's going to be very helpful for you going forward. And I will be sharing an example of a style guide because that is something helpful for not just you, but for anyone who comes after you, and just to ensure that you're leaving social media in a good place for further people. Also just good for general digital management. Leah mentioned a Canva account. And when you pay for a Canva account, you can also build a brand kit. And with that, it does designate, these are the colors we use, these are our icons, our logos, and so forth. And that's a really good thing to use. A question we just got, engagement is continuing to drop on Facebook. How to increase engagement on Facebook specifically. Facebook is a very complicated platform. I will say people are leaving it in hordes because they're controversial, a lot of news about that. However, young people do still keep Facebook. They use it more for Facebook groups, for marketplace, and for business interaction. They're not using it a lot for their own posts. For a college, I don't usually suggest shutting down a Facebook page because it's very good for parents and administrators and all of that. However, I'd probably focus more on other pages, other platforms. Facebook, I don't think it's ever really going to die out. Personally, I think it's always important to have a platform on there and have a presence. I just wouldn't focus too much on that. It's very typical to see the engagement drop. They also change their algorithm all the time. So you could be doing great one day and the next day you have nothing. And that unfortunately is just being a victim of the algorithm. We have another question. Can we talk about promoting events versus promoting your brands and number of posts for separate purposes? For events, as long as you're not promoting 6 months out excessively, I think you can do it a few times per week. That also does depend on your audience. If you have 100 people who like your page, you probably don't want to spam them that much. But if you have a few thousand, I would absolutely do it 1 to 2 times per week. At least once per week. I think that's great. And promoting your brand, that a good example I can think about that in my mind is saying, hi, we are XYZ department. We provide these services, come and visit us. It depends on what exactly services you're offering or if you're introducing something new. If you're just introducing yourself generally, probably just in the beginning of semesters. If you are talking more about a specific service, like say, oh, we offer these types of appointments. I think that'd be fine at least once per week or so. I'm thinking of my college health campus. They had vaccination appointments. That's something to talk about a little bit more frequently rather than just being the general, this is who we are. So thank you for that. Another question we got in the chat, thoughts on posting on Instagram and sharing that same post to Facebook and Twitter. I think that does work. Especially if you're on a time crunch. If you can dedicate the time to differentiate, absolutely go ahead and do that. But again, social media does take a lot of time. So I think that's completely fine. A lot of these have the option to directly share through your post. I believe when you post on Instagram, you have that little like share to Facebook toggle on and off that you can absolutely use. So feel free to use that. Just make sure you're not over posting on one platform or under posting on another. Marie made a really good comment using Facebook to reach faculty and staff. Also really good for parents because a lot of parents who are involved in colleges will like these pages and tell their student. For expanding audience and increasing engagement, try for your audience, ensure that you're connecting with other departments, ensure that you're talking with them, ensure that you're also interacting with your own content. If people are asking questions on your page all the time and they never get a response, other people in the future will see that and they just won't bother liking your page because they'll think it's inactive or that they will get better luck somewhere else. To increase engagement, hashtags are really great. Having interactive content, hashtag reply tweet is very popular to generate a lot of that engagement. Challenges like we talked about before, and that doesn't have to be anything big or complicated. It can be share your favorite place on campus with hashtag healthy colleging, something like that. And that's pretty low effort. It's something that your staff and your student staff can do as well to kind of boost those engagement rates and encourage others to do so. Hosting contents is a really great way to do that as well. We use this a lot in a lot of social media settings. It could be a giveaway. Sometimes it's a giveaway for something like a $100 Amazon gift card. Other times it's for a free umbrella. And with that, it doesn't really matter what you're giving away. People just like getting things and getting that acknowledgement. It's a really good way for them to also share your content. You can have different parameters such as you must like, you must share, you must comment, something like that. So that is a really good way to do that. Thank you for sharing that, Leah. And should you remove or engage with comments that are inappropriate, offensive, or inaccurate? We actually had an entire session about this for a different training previously. It's very complicated. It depends on the exact content. If it's something that is inappropriate or offensive, such as a slur, an insult, something that won't be adding anything, I would err on the side of deleting it. If you do work for a school that has different settings on that or different policies on that, just ensure that you are following that. And then ensure that you can also block the person from the page, especially if they are not affiliated. If it's something that's inaccurate, I think the best thing I could do is probably with vaccines. People have been posting a lot of misinformation about vaccines. How you can address that by responding saying, hi, that isn't true. You can find out more at this resource, or you can debunk it. There is a really good way, a good balance between being empathetic and kind, but also being firm. And if it is also something very egregious or has something inappropriate in it, I would err on the side of hiding or deleting it. Engaging is great when you can and use that as a teaching opportunity. But if you don't have that, the time, the effort, the bandwidth, or if it is something that you're not sure might get someone else more in trouble, whether it's yourself, your department, or so forth, I would err on the side of just not engaging. Yes, Julie, thank you for sharing your brand guide. That's another good example. And yes, please check your office free speech policy, your social media moderation policy. There are a lot of different options there. And then I think we have one last question. Let me get that really quick and then I'm going to wrap up. What if people leave comments about being upset with the university? This happens before, even though I don't manage the main accounts. Sometimes it's better. It depends what they are saying. If they are saying something that is false or offensive, I would probably delete it. However, if it is someone who is very upset about the university in general, maybe not specific to your department, I would leave it up and perhaps not address it. It's not always your place to respond to someone. Some people just want a platform to speak. However, if it is something that is directly with your department, feel free to respond, say, hey, we would like to follow up with you offline, or hey, can you send us a message? Or if it is something small and not innocuous, feel free to just respond. Hey, we're so sorry about this. Here's what we did to fix this. Or hey, you can find more information here. It depends on the severity of it, of course, but sometimes you can just keep comments and just not respond. I think that is a completely valid option. All right, I believe that is all the questions we have. Thank you all for sharing, for talking, for asking really great questions. You have such great experience and insight on this, and we are looking very much forward to talking to you again next month.
Thank you, Hannah and Molly. Thank you, everyone who's attended. We will get this information sent out and also posted in a few days on our events page for CoVAC. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Be well.